Hey chaps, welcome to episode 25 of Nemcast. It's been a while, sorry about the delay. There's lots of things going on at the minute. Good things, not bad things, but there's lots going on, so we had to take a brief pause. So we'll get this quick advert out of the way, then we'll introduce everyone. Hey folks, just going to borrow 1 minute of your time to get this advert out of the way. As you might be aware, we have our own event coming up, Kingdom Clash. The site itself is located in Cheadle, Huntley Wood, at Stoke-on-Trent. Now, what is Op Kingdom Clash? First of all, it's a battle sim, so it's going to be a good Friday to Sunday weekend scrap, up to 300 players. Now, the key word is battle sim. It's not a mill sim. Mill sim's a very serious thing. Battle sim is more of a structured skirmish, if you like. Now, what else is going to be there? Not only is it going to be a weekend battle sim, it's a networking event for small businesses across the UK. So if you guys want to come along, it's £40 for a pitch, and that'll give you a 3x3 pitch from Friday afternoon till Sunday, and you can set up, network with other companies, sell your wares and make your money. I'm trying to help small businesses as well with this event, so keep that in mind. Second-hand sales area. We're welcoming second-hand sales, but if you do have a business, we ask you book a pitch. It's really that simple. Second-hand sales, however, is a free-for-all. If you want to set out from the back of your car, you can, or you can use the designated second-hand sales area. On the Saturday afternoon, there will be a shooting comp. It'll be using attack sense, and we'll have a course of fire over one building. There'll be a first, second and third prize, including the dunce prize. Beer tent and food vendors. So the Bentley Brook Brewery are going to be bringing up their minibar, which is essentially a converted horse box with pumps. So there'll be beer on tap all weekend. As far as food is concerned, we have breakfast, lunch and dinner provided by different food vendors. You'll be able to go and buy all the stuff you need from them. But don't forget, bring some supplies for when you're in the game. Toilet blocks and showers. There will be a full array of toilet blocks and showers. Pre-book now for £85, and the event itself is hosted from the 4th to the 6th of July. So I look forward to seeing you all there, and any questions, don't be afraid to get in contact with me with the links below, or if you want to go ahead and book, again, check the description below. Cheers folks. And we're back. So, let's get introductions out of the way. So we're joined by Dom, my co-host,
Hi guys.
Waldo below me, and Luke from Bristol Based Airsoft to our right. Now, we've already sort of heard the background of Waldo and what you do and bits and bobs, but let's start off with how's business, dude? How's things going?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going very well, and as it gets hotter, it gets busier. So there's a lot more going on at the minute, and the good news is because sales go up, the new things I can do are like. There's more opportunity now because there's more funds coming in to fund them, basically.
Yeah. So it's starting to snowball.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. So, Luke, how are you related to in regards to Waldo's company? And introduce yourself, dude.
Yeah, so sort of quite similar setup in terms of we both make gas blowback parts or gas parts. Was a focus. I started as a 3D printer service, and I've sort of evolved now into making mostly like CNC parts or whatever, just like not just prints essentially. And then I've sort of more recently the Levi parts doing really well, making a lot more of those which are like non-printed parts. So I've sort of dialed back my printing services and tech work and something like that. I've kind of focused on I can make proper parts that aren't just printed.
So what sort of facilities do you have then?
So I've got the printer, 3D printer, but I get the CNC stuff done elsewhere. CNC stuff is expensive if you just have, personal accommodation. Just get it done elsewhere.
Yeah, makes sense, dude. Makes sense. So what sort of printer setup are you running, and what got you into it?
It's a Bambi Labs P1S, sort of just like the benchmark of Bambi Labs' offerings at the moment. It was sort of like a random chance that one of our mutual friends had an Ender 3. And he was like, I'm going to get rid of it. Do you want it for like 50 quid? I was like, yeah, sure.
Everyone does that. I've got an Ender 3, do you want it? And you go, yeah. And you spend about 50% of the time sorting its problems.
Yeah.
And then about 30% of the time getting prints out. And the rest of it is this sort of intermediate area where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I just got pretty lucky with that one, but it was just sort of nice that, because I'd basically done no CAD stuff before that. And it was sort of, you do the usual 3D printing thing where you just print a load of like tatty gimmicks, like funnels and things like that, like
little boats.
Boats, yeah. And then I made like an M2S nozzle assist when you're changing the nozzle springs in the M2Ss. That is literally a tiny little jig. It didn't take me that long to design it, and then I put that up for sale on like Colts, and I think I've sold like 100, 200 of that. So a lot, quite a lot of downloads on that one, and I just started selling it myself for like £1, £1.50. I think it's 1.75 or something like that. And then I kind of just sort of built out a load more products, do things like speed loader adapters, things like that, Odin adapters, sort of just did that. And then the lever came into my hands, and the short stroke was something that I sort of designed quite quickly, sort of within like a couple of weeks of me having it. And then that proved to be really popular. And then I sort of, okay, what else can I do for this platform? And then I'm sort of still in that phase. And a lot of the parts that I've designed for it have become, CNC stuff. So like the short strokes are now injection molded, ABS plastic instead of printed. The type of plates I do aluminium, and I do HPA taps as well, which are in steel. And then a new thing that's coming out is an adjustable trigger, which I'm currently working on. I'm expecting some samples soon. So yeah, moving way more out of sort of just printing stuff, and then me thinking the print is the final product. I just go, the print is the prototyping, and then I go straight to manufacture, get samples in, see how we get on, do testing.
So your sort of base of knowledge and everything you're working on at the minute mostly seems to be revolving around the Lev AR. Is that the sort of your main point of focus for the next few months, or have you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like I've been saying this for a couple of months now, but I kind of feel like we're seeing sort of the end game of the platform already. I think the other big section would be stocks. So if you're not like that familiar with the lever, the stock is enormous. It's like 1 to 2 inches longer than an M16 full stock. It's an enormous length to pull.
Yes.
But you can't make it too short because you get like crunched up because of the angle of the grip. So there's a bit of a fine balance between how you do. And I think aftermarket companies, aside from doing the stuff that's sort of already been done, your short strokes, tap plates, adjustable nozzles, which we work together on, it will be grips and stocks, I think, are the other thing, because the upper is completely AEG V2 spec, so that's kind of done to death in my opinion. You can get a million different receivers,
parts,
a million different like pop chambers, all the inner barrels, buckins, etc. So in terms of for the lever itself, there might be some things you can do around the hammer, maybe some of the internal sort of springs and things like that. But majority of stuff, including like the new triggers coming out, is kind of like been sorted. And I think the stock is the next thing. I assume we might see some cool like kits coming out. I'd be cool to see if someone wants to make like an 1887 body kit out of it. Would be quite cool to see, because the lever system itself is really good. It sort of blows all the other offerings out of the water. In terms of like historical ones, like the ANK is a bit crap. The Marussian Raptors are expensive and don't work that well. There's a few other offerings like the KCO2 underleaf, which you can spend £1 million sorting. But it's sort of like the lever is the full package and what you would want out of a lever action. So I would assume, or I would hope, that some people would look at it and go, what can we build out from this? Probably not something I would look at myself. I've just quite enjoyed doing the small parts for it. But in terms of like me looking forward to the future, I'm always picking up sort of like newer models of gas blowback and stuff, and sometimes I look at it and go, I think we could do a better spring, or a better trigger, something like that. It's like you'll use it and you'll want to have an improvement on it. So I've got a few prints like that on my website already, which are just sort of like their quality of life upgrades. And as and when things come into my possession, I will buy them and then go, right, this could be a product. So for example, something I'm working on is the FN FOUL is a metric, and obviously in the UK the SLRs we have are all imperial, so all the surplus wood stocks don't actually fit properly. One thing I'm working on is an adapter that means you can fit an imperial stock to the VFC FN FOUL. So those are in production at the moment. I won't do a huge run of those, but that's a very niche like problem that mostly people in the UK are having, because obviously all the surplus SLR stuff we have is all imperial spec. The handguards and stuff fit, and most of the furniture does with some modification, but the stocks are like that. If you ever look at a picture of an SLR, there's like a bit of extra material and it has this kind of L shape. That this sort of adapter is going to fill that bottom bit, and then there'll be some printed wings as well. So it's that kind of thing where it's like someone has come to me and said this would be a good thing to have. It wouldn't be that hard to make, and it solves a problem. So yeah, that kind of thing is generally where my products lie. They're like solutions to a problem I found.
So out of the group here, Waldo, Dom, Luke, you guys all are running the Lev AR. How do you guys run them, and what do you prefer to run them in that regard? Is it more of a DMR platform? Do you run it as a bolty technically, or?
Do you want to go first, Waldo? Yours probably more interesting than mine.
I don't know. I've actually only been able to use mine properly once. And it's because basically I actually bought a VFC AR from Luke, and since I got it, I've loved every second with it. But I did next time I play outdoors. I'm probably going to bring it with me, but I run mine in like a sniper format, so it's quite long. Suppressor. It's got loads of some of Luke's bits in it, so it's got like the HPA tap that's flush. It's got CNC tappet plates, so it can never break. It's got his short strokes in it, which are now injection molded, so they're like way stronger than any type of 3D printed plastic could be. And then it has my nozzle in it, so that makes it much easier to hit sniper limits. And then other than that, it's just stuff like a suppressor, bipod, a scope on it, and it's very easy to sling 4 or 5 BBs with it. So it was very fun when I used it, but when I did play, it wasn't the most amazing game day. So I'm looking forward to taking it somewhere a bit more entertaining and using it properly. And that'll probably be Kingdom Clash. Probably be around then. Yeah.
Dom, how are you running yours?
So at the moment, it's in its stock configuration, so long handguard, which is one of the problems with the Leviar. They're too short or they're too long. And that is the nature of it. There's no in between. If they'd done a 10-inch, it'd be nice. So we're running it with Waldo's nozzle. Amazing. You just up and down. You set your PSI to a nice low level. We're running that with the quad hot rubber, quantum hot rubber. I'm still on the fence about that one, whether I like it or not, as an AG hot rubber.
I've had mixed results with those hot rubbers. Some people love them.
It works. It hops whatever you chuck in it. But is it going to replace something else? No, we'll see. And we're using that with Luke's short stroke kit at the moment, and also Luke's HPA tap. And we're running that at 2.2, 2.3 joules as a sniper. But it's awkward. It's too long. That's the problem with it. It just needs to be a bit shorter. But that's sort of how I'm running it. I think I'll keep running it. Tried at AG power, pretty pointless. If you're going to run as a DMR or a sniper, unless you're just doing it for the memes, then run it on gas, get rid of the hose, and just go full send. It's how I would do it.
Fair enough. Well, Luke, what about you? How are you running yours when you do run it? You said you don't.
Yeah, mine's the opposite of that. I put like a 10-inch outer barrel. It's got like a Mark 8 Repro rail on it, so it's quite short. I've run it at 1 joule with like 3.2s, 3.5s with like a red RMR or like a red dot. It's quite hard work comparably to the other stuff I use. Like when I was using it on Sunday, there was moments where I was like, multiple people come into my field of view and I'm having to like fire rack, and I was just like, if I had a semi-auto rifle, it would have been like no problem. But it's like, because like the grip angle as well, if you're holding angles for quite a long time, I find I've quite bad wrists. So when I'm really like angled up, like in my shoulder, I find that quite holding angles is a bit tight. But yeah, so I run fatigue. Fatigue of that. I run it 1.1 joules, and I never run it above that because for me, I don't like DMR limits in airsoft. They're a bit of a gimmick. I find them a bit pointless.
I wholeheartedly agree. I have to build a lot of. Obviously, I'm an AEG tech primarily. I do the odd HPA build, but primarily AEG. And people always come and say, "Can I have a DMR build?" And I'll go, "Well, what's your sight limit on DMR?" They've got it's 400. I'll go, it's pointless, mate. You're going to get the same range as an AG, except for AGs have the advantage that they can push you. There's nothing you can do. 450's a bit better, but not many sites do that.
It tends to be in the middle, like 45 tends to be like the average. But yeah, so for me, when I think, do I want a medium engagement distance? I just go, I'll take a TAC 41 out. I'll take a bolt action out. I've had silverback rifles for years now. And they're just sort of like, for me, it doesn't really get much better than a bolt action silverback at 2.32 joules. Like I had an SRS, had multiple TAC 41s. If I'm going to run something of that power, I'd want it to be one of those rather than the Levi itself.
Now, that's the next thing that I wanted to sort of bridge is we had the question of Op Kingdom Clash, people are going to turn up with Leviars. How do we classify them? Do you pencil them in as, they're fine to use as a bolt action? or is it more of a DMR because of the speed you can rack it? I've gone with, for the event, I've said, look, as far as I'm concerned, it's a bolty. Because
Yeah.
you can HPA tap bolt action rifles and make them really short stroke.
Mhm.
But I was just wondered what your guys' take was.
Yeah,
Who
Waldo,
wants-
do you want to give it that
Yeah.
one?
Well, the last time I used it, which was the first time I used it, it was DMR limits, and it did suck. It's like all the all the disadvantages of having an actual DMR. Oh no, having a bolt action with like none of the advantages of having a DMR, if that makes sense. So like I have a med, everyone's just too far away, but then anyone who happens to be a bit closer I can't shoot at, and it's just this horrible in between distance. It's just that was the thing. It was always just I can see someone who's like 75 meters away, and I'd be pretty confident I could hit that after a few tries at 2.2 joules or whatever. But because I'm on like 1.6 or something, I have to either arc it or just not even bother. And considering, like, another thing is the lever is not light. Like, it'd be one thing being able to shoot quickly. The other thing is I can pole vault with it, and it's also like really heavy. So it's not as like amazing as people make it out to be. I think it's pretty balanced, actually.
No, it's not like you're running around with the VSR 10 that you can sort of make up for the fact that you haven't got that usability at distance, well, as they start closing, because it's featherweight.
For sure.
Dom, what are your thoughts on it, mate?
I think it's everything and nothing. It can be whatever you want it to be. It is that blank canvas, isn't it? The long one is too long. Admittedly, I'm a tall chap, and the eye relief. Getting a scope to sit far back enough without the optic mount being reversed on a cantilever. There's all these little nuances that you kind of go right. It's a bit of a pain in the arse, really. If you want a lever action, that's the best one you're going to get. You know, for your money, it's going to work. Once you chuck a couple, quid's worth of upgrades, it's going to work even better. But I'm going to try and run it just keep it at sniper. Keep it at a sniper. See if it can be. I'm sure it can be, and there's no reason it couldn't be. But if I can get along with that at a sniper level, otherwise it's kind of like I've given myself a 17-inch rifle that I can't get around corners with at 350. It's just a massive disadvantage in playing airsoft on hard mode, more so than playing it with gas. You're just setting yourself up for a tough time. And unfortunately, it is a skill issue. I'll put my hand up and go, yeah, it's a skill issue every day. But, it's a nice platform to go, I'm going to mess around with it. I'm going to do something different and try. Because there's lots of crazy combinations. I've done mine in like a Pencock camo to try and go this whole full salady, gimmicky, you can't see me kind of route, which kind of helps when people can't see you. They can't hit you. Mainly because I'm too far away or I'm hiding in a bush going, yeah, it's great. But, it's an okay platform. It's not be-all, end-all, but it's just...
It's not a deal breaker.
No.
So, Luke, what do you think then? Are you saying they're more of a sniper platform, or is it close to DMR for you? If say you're a marshal on a site, how would you look at it?
Yeah, bolt action. You're manually cycling the bolt, or you're manually cycling something. For me, that's such an obvious bolt action. The speed thing, yes, we managed to make it very quick, but you can straight pull bolt an HPA VSR, and it's like 1 inch, and you can fire. Like, there's a few crazy videos on YouTube. Some people have made them like basically a lever action, but you can flick it with your thumb. So you like fire, and then you flick back this little piece of plastic, and it's already loaded the next round. Like it's like there are ways you can make a standard bolt action very quick, and also muscle memory. You can cycle a lightweight bolt or lightweight spring, like light pull spring, very quickly, and it's sort of like, I think I would understand if they would say that you can't run it as a bolt action, but if their reasoning is speed, then they're not getting it. Like the smart team are not understanding what it is. If it's
I think that would be the only viable reason that someone would say we're not accepting it as a 500 FPS sniper. That's the only reason I could think people would or about it as marshals when you approach chrono lines and what have you. But hey ho, it is what it is. So would you say the Lev AR as a platform, because this is something I want to try and get nailed down, is it worth the money?
Ooh.
Would you say it's worth the money? Because obviously you guys have had to bring out upgrades, fixes, etc. for it. They fucking exploded when they first came out in people's
Yeah.
hands. What's the entry price for one nowadays? Not that I've looked. I should have really, but
450 for I think they're both. I think it's about 440. I know on release they were about that. I mean, I think they were marked even further. I think on release like 500 quid. But I think now, I mean, I've only seen the wholesale price them recently, but like I think it's about retail's about 440. I think 410 quid's 450 quid.
Yeah, slightly less for the 7-inch because you don't get the stock, do you?
Stock, yeah. It's not that much less though.
No, and it's kind of like, oh, well, you get the one with the stock and then just get a different upper.
The stocks are like 60 quid by themselves as well if you want the full set.
It's crazy for a bit of plastic, but it's the thing that's made for it.
So, is it worth it?
I think it depends on who you are, really. Because if you're after elite reaction and you want the one that works the best, then yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But I think it's also worth it to remember, like outside of who makes it, whatever, it's like a completely proprietary system, like in terms of the lower, and it's a very like specific, like non-blowback lever action that takes ages. Like it's very specifically spec'd. And I feel like if you want to consider one, you really have to look at everything it's got going for it and really like know. I would hold one and I would rack one that one has a short stroke in it and two doesn't have a short stroke in it, because quite a few people have, if I talk to people on sites, whatever, who've got lead bars, obviously I want to talk to them about stuff. Some people just like there's people with two opinions that it can't exist without a short stroke, as in like it's a quality of life item that people can't do without, or the people ask me the question, why would you buy a lever action that isn't full bolt travel? Which is also fair enough, because some people want the lever is specifically very long as a bolt travel. I think real bolts don't go nearly as far as that, maybe like 2/3. It's like, if you've got like a 5.56 lever action, I think it's about 2/3 of that travel. But it's still like, the short stroke is not really a full action if you want to view it that way. So I think that you're in two camps about the lever, really. You're like, why bother making it quicker? Or it's essential for a lot of people. So in terms of is it worth it? I think it depends who you are, really. Because even though I do loads of parts for it, I personally don't use it that much. I much prefer using my full gas blowback rifles for general gameplay. Maybe for sites that are a bit more open, I'll bring it out occasionally, but I tend to lean towards the TAP 41 more than the lever. But sometimes it's just nice for a change of pace. Like as you said, it's a skill issue for people who like struggle with them, but also not everyone wants to like slave away at trying to get through a skill issue.
Yeah,
like in like games and stuff, there's like the get good, but you're meant to be enjoying it. In a lot of things in airsoft, some people, the extra skill needed to use it is not worth the hassle. So yeah, I think for a lot of people, it probably is like a really cool system, and people really like using it. But I think a bigger amount of people probably would pick up and just be like, it's not for me, or they don't quite see the appeal of it, because for a lot of people it's AGM4 and that's their entire airsoft experience. So yeah, I think it depends who you are in terms of if it's worth it or not. I don't think the retail is too high for what it is. Like a full AG upper, that's not that expensive, but completely proprietary lower. You mentioned the stock. I think you said something like it's full of plastic. So that's actually a full aluminium piece, the stock with the butt pad and stuff like this. If you wanted to produce that yourself, that would be very expensive, which is why I think we've only seen one aftermarket stock that's full CNC, which is the TWI one. I can't remember off the top of my head how much that is, but it's quite a bit. I think it's like 80 quid or something like 80 to 100 quid, something around that much. But so for what, if you look at it as like an objective, this is what the product is, and then you look through like the specs, how it's made and everything, it's probably worth the retail price of it. Maybe more the Asia one than the UK one, but as we know, UK stuff is generally more expensive.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, is it worth the money? Yes, if it's for you. Like, if it's a replica for you.
Yeah, it's something that if you really want that vibe, the way you're going to play, then it's worth committing to that as a lever gun, by the sound of it. Waldo, what's your thoughts, mate?
I think so. Like, I can pretty much completely agree with Luke. Like, if you're looking for a good bolt action long range sniper, it's probably not the lever, but it is crazy fun, and it's like a really nice, unique twist, like a nice way to break it up, change the pace a bit. I think it does so many like cool things that I like. I love that it's like the only reliable good lever action. That's a nice thing, but it's nice that it's not just another lever action. It's actually good. There was time put into it, thought process of like, how can we make the hard parts of owning a lever action bearable? And I love that it takes AEG mags. That's great. I love that it takes AEG uppers. I think that's brilliant. It's such a good choice. And whilst I do agree, it sucks a lot of the lower is proprietary. I think a lot of the stuff that isn't proprietary sort of makes up for it. Like, no
It's a worthy
proprietary
trade-off.
gas mags is great. Like, the fact like just anyone who owns AEG mags, which is 99% of everybody, can just slam it in and go. So I think it's like, if you're going for like the optimal bolt action experience, it's not a good bet, and you can actually get better for less money. You can get better for like half the cost. But that said, with like an upgrade package from me or Luke, which is less than £50, you can genuinely make, I would say, if 10 out of 10 is like a silverback TAC 41 with all the right bits, I'd say you can get it to a pretty decent 8. Like, you can get it pretty close, but it definitely falls short. But for me, it's the same reason why I use GBBR. I'm not necessarily here for optimal, I'm here for fun. And
yeah,
like,
it's maximising the sort of feedback that you get and the realism for what you're after anyway.
For sure. And like, I like GBBRs because of the experience of using one. If I wanted to be a bit more optimal and keep that, I could buy like a DAS, but there's all sorts of issues with that. And I'd rather just have the fun of GBB and enjoy that as an experience. And honestly, like, I think if it's all mentality, like Luke said, but if you have the right mentality and like you it's something you're sure of, it never really feels like it's holding you back. Like, whenever I play with my GBR at Optac or at Fireplace, there was genuinely so few moments where I was like, I wish I had bigger mags or no cooldown or anything like that. Like, if you just let it sit in for a bit and you figure it out and you learn how to adjust to it, you never feel like you're missing out. And I think it's the same with the lever. You just need to sort of accept, okay, this isn't going to be perfect, but it is going to be more fun. And I think that's a trade-off I'm happy with.
It's fair. Yeah. So one thing I want to ask, which I don't think we've covered yet, is how did you guys sort of officially get talking originally? Have you always known each other as long-time mates, or has it been you reached out to Luke for your first parts to be made?
We've met at NAF a few times, or a couple of times at least. Like, your group you went to NAF with, I spoke to loads already. So I came over to your camp a couple of times. But in terms of like businessy stuff, I started, literally, I think next week is my year anniversary of BBA. And it was only sort of, I think we've been in the same circle that entire time, like social circle on Discord at least, the Shitsoft guys. And then it was sort of like, oh, okay, I can actually do some more of this. And then Waldo, a guy called Dan Sherfire, you've had him on before, and a guy called James, who runs Warfare Media, were extremely helpful in sort of, talking through how they have things set up, and then basically sort of riding their coattails in terms of how they run stuff, have managed to get like a really good, successful business out of it. So it's sort of like who really in terms of getting things right, at least as much as you can the first time you do things. So I think sort of over that time we've just sort of chatted more and more, and then obviously we've collaborated quite a few times more recently.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's good. Now, Waldo, we know you've gone basically full time with your business. Yeah. Luke, how are you? Nearly full time with it? Is it still sort of? Is it a bit like me? Because I run mine as that is a side job that pays for my hobby and a few little treats each year.
Yeah. So exactly that. So there was a time where very briefly where it was full time, so I was made redundant from a previous job. But literally this week I've started another full time job. So it's basically, I set it up to, once it started making actual money, I was like, right, this can actually fund airsoft, which for the last few years has been my biggest financial drain. My personal money is airsoft. So if the business funds it, that means it frees up, even though like now it's doing really well, so there's like way more money there. But initially it was just like, I don't have to take money out of my personal account for airsoft now. So that in itself was a huge benefit to doing it. and it's definitely freed me up to like sort other things out.
I think that's when people start businesses in this little sort of hobby industry that we've got. It seems to be the running trend of I have a skill I can monetize. I just want to pay for the expensive toys that I like and the game days. Legitimately, that seems to be the running trend. I don't know if that's the case with everyone, but it seems to be a running trend. How have you found, this is to Luke first, but how have you found working in this little industry? Because I'm going to assume you've got a few trade accounts, a few companies, things like that. How have you found it? Is it quite welcoming, or is it quite closely gate kept? I found when I first got into it, it was very closely gate kept.
Yes, and I sort of more recently found that to be much more true than I initially thought. Probably can't say too much about that, but basically there's been a few sort of unfriendly things that have happened to sort of the way we've done stuff recently. But it's more to do with sort of trade accounts, and when you're looking at things like retail prices for things, you realize that sometimes they're not always there for the customer. Is the thing that I've realized sort of quite way more recently than before, especially like even looking at the price of like gas blowbacks. Mainly gas blowbacks is a really obvious one for us because I think the people who are in it are way more into maybe this is a bit, I don't think this is untrue actually. I think the people who are into gas blowbacks are way more into airsoft than the average like AEG user. I think that as a generalization, I think that's true, and I think
they're more financially invested, don't you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Way more money pit invested. But I think in terms of being like on it, in terms of ordering stuff in, things like that, I'd say that the gas blowback community seems way more in tune with like the Southeast Asian market, for example. Like we import stuff all the time. Obviously, a lot of the AG stuff comes there from as well. But when I was into AG sort of early on, I didn't really find that there was like this level of community for that.
No, from what I can see from an outside perspective with the GBBR side of it, it's a very dedicated thing. You've got to spend a lot of time maintaining them in the first place. As far as compared to an AG, you get it out of the box once a year. It fires normally. You just if it breaks, just chuck it to tech, comes back to you fixed, job done. GBBR, if you've played in a dusty environment, you need to clean that thing without fail. So there is a much higher level of dedication required in order to run a GBBR. Obviously, some people dip their toe into it, and I don't think they've got the willingness to maintain them. And then they go, I can't get on with GBBR. They'll come up with an excuse because they can't be asked to fucking clean it. That seems to be the running trend. I know that's why I haven't got into GBBR, because I've got enough on my plate. I just can't be asked to clean it.
There's a few other things in there as well. Like one thing I mentioned earlier is the fact that the Levi takes in full mags. A huge biting point for a lot of people is that they go to buy a gas gun and then they go, you got to buy extra mags. And then they look at the price of mags and that just is like, I guarantee you like a huge percentage of people, when they hit checkout, they get the gun first and they're like, I can afford that. And then they add 5 extra mags and it adds like 200,
double the value.
Depending on what it is, it adds. And I think for that, it's when you're getting into something new, you want as little resistance as possible. Ideally, in an ideal world, there's like as little walls as possible. And it is, you have to look at it objectively. When you get a gas blowback gun, you need stuff like, you need a way to clean like the bolts and stuff. Like you need an AR wrench. Let's say if you've got an AR, you're going to need one of those at some point. Less so with like AEGs, because generally, usually the only stuff that's in the back is the wiring and things like that. Most of it's in the gearbox. Having that and having like proper maintenance lube as well, proper ways to clean stuff, and then you have to be careful, like mindful of gases and like moderating gases, M passes. There's so much like if you looked at like a checklist for like getting into gas blowback, there's about 8 things on there at least. And AG is like, you need a charger and batteries that work properly. They've got to be the right voltage. And then aside from that, then it's just sort of like generic air stuff like BB weights. It's the hops.
Yeah, the basics. Make sure the barrel's clean, that sort of shit.
It's that barrier to entry, which for a lot of people, which is why I think, unfortunately, quite a lot of people just go, I've seen that like 5 extra mags is 250 quid. But there's an HBA adapter and it's 100 quid. And then they go, but I've got to buy the bundle as well, which is another 150. And then they've ended up spending the same amount of money, and their gun looks like shit because it's got an MP5 mag sticking out of it.
Looking at you with your fucking foul.
He said the quiet part out loud.
It's sort of, it's unfortunate really, because then they'll be using that and then they won't because it's HPA, there's like no, not that I run stuff with oil in it, but just as like an average player running stuff with green gas with silicon in, for example, that does quite a lot to keep things, keep seals going. But HPA obviously is completely dry.
Yeah, it's
And
just
then
dry.
if it makes it, that's like, if I see, for example, I see so many sales ads which are like MWS and it's got an HPA adapter, and you look at the photos and you're like, that bolt is dry and has never seen lube in its entire life. It's there's just a lot of instances where I see things like that, and it's like, they'll say things like, "Oh, it's not for me," or whatever, and you look at it and it's like, it's the T, or it's like the C8 clone, the T8 clone of the MWS, so it's like not the best MWS, and then it doesn't have any original mags, it just has the HPA adapter, and it's an MP5 one, and it's like, oh my god, it's like setup after setup, like mistakes basically. And you just go, oh, you could have so easily just had like an MWS, like 3 extra mags, and it would have all worked. You just had to like pay attention to what gases and stuff. And I think that barrier to entry for a lot of people is just not worth the hassle, which is fair enough, entirely. But yeah.
Waldo, I've got to ask you now before I forget. How have you found being in the airsoft industry as far as you've been in? As long as you've been in. Is it getting any easier for small businesses from what you can see, or is it becoming more difficult?
The hesitation says a lot. It's never been easier to start a business from home. It's never been easier. There's so many tools, and I really implore people, you should do this. You should do it. Just try. Like, if you set up a limited company and you just put in a little of your own money, don't worry with loans yet, just do a little bit and do little by little, there's very little chance that you're going to have too much of a negative thing taken out on you. Like, worst case, the stuff you buy, people don't buy it, and that's it. And you have to find a way to sell it. If you just go in ankle deep, you'll be fine. You can't make a mistake. That said, sometimes the industry can be unfriendly, and your biggest hurdle is not customers, it's the people around you, and that really sucks. It's really lame. It's also something I've found. I'm absolutely not going to name names or anything like that, because I'm so far withdrawn from like drama. I hate talking negatively to people or about people like that. I think it sucks, it's stupid, and it's boring, it wastes everyone's time. That said, like, there are times I've had people get angry at me for something, and it's every time I don't actually say it, but every time I think, there is enough people, there are enough airsoft guns, there are enough paychecks where both of us can coexist in this bubble, and it will be like the other person was never there. If you had never discovered me, if I had never come up on your feed, you would never have known that I was doing this, I was making money, that you were making money. We could have just existed. But instead, you decided to throw a hissy fit because you weren't making £20 more a day than I was. And it's just the most and it's just, Luke knows this because we've been through ringers recently with people, and it's just splitting hairs and being so unprofessional about something no one cares about. Like, no one cares but you, and it amounts to so little. I cannot even stress, like, this is going nowhere. And I think that is the biggest issue with starting in business, is actually, unfortunately, other businesses. And it sucks because I would love to say it's the minority, but it actually isn't. I think there is actually, sadly, quite a lot of this, and there are companies like Luke's, like AirTac, like a bunch of other people I've worked with and spoken with who are genuinely amazing people, and like all people, make mistakes occasionally and they bounce back from it. But there are some people where it's like, I swear, you've never stepped foot on an airsoft field, you've never spoken to a customer, you saw margins on a spreadsheet and you thought, that's where I'll be, and that's it. And I think that's so lame, and it sounds a bit gatekeepy, but I think it should be. I think it's ridiculous they're being opportunists.
It's gatekeeping's very necessary in any industry, really, but it's how it's gate kept. I found, from my perspective when I first started up, was the gatekeeping wasn't helping actual entrepreneurs wanting to do well and help other people. it was to stop competitors, and they looked at everyone as a competitor.
Yeah.
So when I came in, I went, look, I need a trade account. I want to buy pistons in bulk and bits and bobs. And they'll go, well, where's your shop? That's the question I constantly got. Where's your bricks and mortar shop? And I go, I don't know if you've looked outside recently, but it's all barber shops now, mate. There's no, and charity shops. There is no bricks and mortar shops. They're all going because it's not viable.
It's boomer mentality, dude.
It's
It
what
is.
I would call, and I mean this. Sorry, just adjust my mic. I mean this in the most polite way possible, because if it wasn't for the boomer generation, we wouldn't have airsoft like we do now. So there's something to, they passed it forward a little bit, but that old guard aren't doing. I'm sure there's some doing enough to help, but generally speaking, it does seem to be a feeling that no one's helping anyone, and it's getting worse.
It is,
especially small businesses.
bloodthirsty. Like that, I've heard plenty of things on the grapevine, and I can never tell if they're true or not. Because again, people just in this industry, unfortunately, just make shit up about each other, and it sucks. But there are times where I'm hearing people send like cease and desists over the stupidest, smallest thing. I heard a thing of one company sending a cease and desist to another company. They had to have been at minimum a 6-figure company, at minimum, and they were sending it to a guy who was selling something for £12 that was 3D printed in his bedroom. And it was stuff like that, and that's like such a metaphor for like how tricky business can be sometimes, at least to my knowledge, in airsoft. I don't know if it's like that in other ones, but it's just ridiculous. And it always comes back around to this. There is enough people playing airsoft and enough money going around where that can exist, and you'll never see the difference in your bank account. I promise you.
There's plenty of work for everyone, and I can see a wild bandit in the background.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
It's all right. Let's just see a dog, so I have to acknowledge the dog. It doesn't seem to be improving. That's what's worrying me at the moment. Dom, obviously you don't have an airsoft business, but you're in the peripherals and you're seeing all this going on.
Yeah. I have a question actually, just before. So, because I don't own a business, I'm the only one that doesn't. Do you think it's viable nowadays? Because I like going into airsoft shops. I like seeing products. I like touching products, not just looking at a pretty picture on a page. I like getting my hands on things. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, I could not, for love nor money, find an LCT RPK anywhere physically in stock that I could get my hands on, because I wanted to feel it before I dumped 450 quid onto this AG that was awful. But do you think now, if one of you said, right, I want to open up a brick and mortar shop, I want to sell rifles, I want to do this, do you think it is a viable business, considering the retailers that are currently there with what they're selling at? Like, you just could not compete. It's not like you could buy bread from the same people. They get it 10 times cheaper because they're buying containers of bread. You can buy 5 or 10 bits of bread. Do you know what I mean?
So just go first. Yes, with a caveat, and that's you have to charge out the arse. It is how you do brick and mortar, because you can't compete. To no discredit, but like Fastport, Troll Base, the big shops, they're ordering like containers from Taiwan and from Hong Kong. Like, they are going to get stuff cheaper than you. But if you go into like a shop that sells like very limited like stuff, so for example, let's say, I don't think this would ever happen with me and Waldo, but the stuff we're into is so niche. It would be very limited quantities of very specific things, and they would be expensive because we'd have to cover overheads and things like that. Cover the cost of renting. Like, I live in Bristol, as you might suggest. The rent is ridiculous here. Like, I occasionally just hop on Zoopla to look at commercial rent, and it's like, if I want a barbershop, it's like I'm gonna have to start selling like 10 times more to even bother having a shop. But then I look at the products that are selling, and I sell like really specific niche like gas parts. It's not no one's coming in to like fondle a short stroke in a shop, for example.
No, they're not going, oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
I have had a look at like doing stuff with like wholesale like replicas and things like that, but just quite often it just isn't worth the faff. And also with replicas, you're relying on that original brand's quality control to not have returns. So like, I've never worked in one of these big shops, but if you ever look on like the Patrol-based Boneyard, there was one period of time where they had like 25 Spectre M249s in the Boneyard, and there was a great screenshot of like 20 of them, like a couple of them were two-toned, and they all had like the same issue. And I'm just thinking to myself, if that's one model, how many times has a big company ordered like 100 rifles and half of them have come back within the first
My
month?
favourite one I've seen was, I think it was like Wholesales or Nuprol, one of the two. You know how they have a discount section if you've got a trade account. And there must have been 15 or 20 L85s in the AEG ones, but they've been sent without carry handles. They just weren't there. They weren't available. You couldn't get them.
Yeah.
So they've got 20 odd of these rifles that are just aesthetically displeasing now. I mean, if you
More so than
if you
normal.
like that. Yeah, more so than normal.
Yeah,
It's the industry is not ideal for small business, especially selling rifles.
There was an example more recently, is that the only airsoft shop in Bristol, airsoft shop, it was like an outdoor shop, Marcus Outdoors. They closed down in the last month, and the big headline they went with was they blamed the clean air zone for where their shop was. So their shop was in the clean air zone. Obviously, he said, they said, there's like a family-run business, that that was the reason to blame. I can understand the rent where they were was probably quite high. It's sort of like West Bristol, just out of the centre. However, if you went into that shop, it was only ever low, like cost, high margin products. So really sort of big, not like beginners saying like beginners was crap. I'm just saying that it's generally very low, like Vorse pistols, like older like WE stuff, like low entry AEGs that anyone who's super into it just knows that they're just like a failure point, like well bolt actions, things like that. They're like sub 100 quid replicas, and you're just like, these aren't gonna last a year. And it was only ever stuff like that. He occasionally had like TM pistols in, or sometimes I think when the Crytek Vectors, the gas ones, came out, he actually had a few of those. And I was so shocked to go in, because I've only went in there about 3 or 4 times, and I was like, oh my god, there's a gas blowback on the wall that's like a new one. I was so surprised that he had them in. Naturally didn't have enough mags for any of them. I think he bought 3 Vectors, and he bought the 3 packs 3 times. And I literally said to him, you've got 3 now. The first guy is going to buy the other 2 packs, and you won't have any spare mags immediately. And it was just like, it was such a rare example of them actually having something I would consider like not beginner or entry level. And when I watched the interview and he was like playing clean airs, and I was like, you had nothing for anyone but the very beginnings of an airsoft player in terms of like what people are willing to invest. It was like, if they've been playing for a few months and want to spend more money, there was nothing your shop could offer like for them. And this is the only shop in Bristol that did physical airsoft stuff. The only other thing is going to like the crib site, but they sell the same stuff. It's like Vor stuff. It's like entry level. I think they're expanding now. I spoke to the marshals. They seem like they do want to get some more intermediate stuff in. But it's just an example of like, Bristol's a huge city. There's tons of airsoft players here. I know there is, because I meet them all the time. If I go to the local sites, I see the same people. And it's sort of like, how can this really be the only place that people could go to? And it closed. And it was just sort of like, I'm sad that an airsoft business has gone out, but I'm also like, you weren't really helping yourself in terms of keeping people coming back. You would want that return customer. Like, an ideal for me, like a shop, is that I go in when I'm a beginner. I pick up my double eagle AG. I might get like a Vorse pistol, and then I play for a year, and I come back in, and they've got like a TM pistol for me, and they've got like an LCT AK that I might want to look at. And then further on, they might have like MTWs on the wall, or they've got like silverbacks on the wall. You having that sort of level so that they keep coming back in for something new. Like people love playing. And then the next week they go, oh, right, I really want this for the next time. And then it's like, for me, airsoft, when you're purchasing stuff, is in cycles. And it definitely depends on how often you're playing. I think if you play more, your gear changes more, is how I view it. So I play a shit ton, I always have done. And as a result, my main replicas have changed without fail pretty much every 2 to 3 months. It's very rare that I hold on to, like the lever I have at the moment. This is going to be a long-term thing. I'm probably going to own it longer than anything I've owned previously.
Directly down at Dom, who's famous in our group for having a rifle for all of 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the lads will go, oh, Dom's got a new rifle, can't wait to see that. And it's gone before they get to see it. And we see him every second week normally.
There's one gun. There's one gun which I've held on to for longer than 2 years, and that's in a box. It sits there, and I'm not going to get rid of it, but I just can't get rid of it because I'm not allowed. They just told me they're going to gaslight me.
we've got a
So
group
it's a
kibosh on
stolen
it.
break. They're just going to say that no, it's terrible, don't buy it, and just ruin my sales post. But no, I agree. I go through the cycle. I'll go through. I really want this, and then I'll get rid of this and go, no, I'm bored with you, and then I'll get something else, and then I'll go, no, I'm bored with you now, and this vicious cycle. The Levy R can do everything. It can be an AG, it can be a DMR, it can be a sniper. If I'm bored at playing at sniper levels and going, this is terrible as a sniper, let's bring it back. Let's try something else. And it gives me a bit of flexibility with that. You're not just stuck with a spring and going, oh, now it's a DMR, but it's just an M4 with a big ass scope. M4s can be DMRs. Changed my mind, but So in fact,
they shouldn't be. That's haram.
If they're a Mark 12, then they
Yeah,
can be a
yeah.
DMR.
Yeah.
Or if they're an M16 with a bigger scope on, like they had in the 70s.
But an ARP,
There's
an
nothing
AAP
that
can be a
boils
DMR.
my piss more is when you see something that's 9mm bin DMR. Well, technically 9mm. That's been
An ARP,
DMRs.
an ARP9 with a drum mag and a telescopic. I'm going to hit you.
A fat
It's not a
big one
DMR.
like that. So, Waldo, have you ever considered selling rifles or anything like that? Or has it always been you've specialised in components more? Did you ever look at it as a viable business option, or?
I think I looked at it once, maybe 4 years ago, and I have never looked back. The margins are so shocking. As Luke said, you can buy guns wholesale in the UK for what they sell retail in Asia. Like there's so little movement, and I've said this to friends and people in our business chat before. What I could spend on 3 guns, I could buy a good few pieces or a good few test samples or some molds of like an actual product with decent margins, and it would be more interesting to more people, and then someone would pick it up in my store online. They go, oh, well, I'll add 2 other things to make my visit worth it, and then it just snowballs. And I think selling guns is one of those things where it's like, this would be cool, but realistically it is impractical compared to like what I'm currently doing. Like, I think what me and Luke are doing is genuinely, like, financially speaking, the most optimal way to run an airsoft company, if you care about it that way. But it means we get to make a lot of our own decisions about prices and wholesale. Like, we can actually make things affordable for people.
I've said it both. There's no reason not to buy your upgrades.
Yeah.
There is literally no reason not to. You buy a Lev AR, you're going to spend that extra little bit of money to put your bits in. It's just a no-brainer. There's no argument not to.
Mm.
Unless
That's
you don't
a
want
good point. Yeah.
It's just sensible, and you can get them all from one place.
Yeah.
See, nice little vlog. Sorry, Connie.
That's
You're
good.
going to
It's all right.
ask us a question, and then I asked you a question, which is very rude. Sorry.
So what's your one? So we'll start with Luke. From your perspective, from where you are now, what you've learned. If someone was to get into this industry now, what would be your one bit of advice?
Be niche. Very niche.
Find a niche.
Yeah. Because like,
I assume that's going to be Waldo's answer as well. I'd assume.
It's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, we've known people that have, well, you've probably seen it as well. They say they're going to start, they start like an online retailer, and then they go like wholesale, or they get a new product count, or like with like Viper and something, and then they order like half the catalog, and then it just sits there. Because you look at the Shopify front and you just go, this is the same as the X1 down the road. It's like, yeah, you've seen this before. And we've known people that have ordered like 200, 300 quid's worth of stock off like wholesale or whatever, and they just expect money to come in, and they're not offering anything new, they're not marketing it properly. Whereas, for example, myself, basically I was a one like trick pony for quite a while with a short strike. It was just that was what people came to my website for. So like my click-through rate to checkout was like really good. Like conversion rate's really good. People are going, I want this product. They look at the product, I come up, they buy that. And it's like, having that is like your own thing. I can think of quite a few airsoft companies that are like this, where they have had that one product and then they've just gone, right, let's build off that. Like I imagine someone at AirTag, I don't know them that well. I imagine they had one HBA adapter when they first did it, and they were like, oh, we could actually do quite a few of these and things. And then it's just spiraled, and then he's got like a multiple SLS machines in like Northern Ireland. He's got a huge operation now, which is really cool. That's kind of like sort of the dream, I think, for a lot of people who have businesses like this, where they have found their niche and they are going to do as much of it as they can. And assuming it's still financially viable, they just like keep going with it. Like there's so many other companies I can think of like throughout the years, like the company called Hadron. I'd never heard of this company called Hadron. They seem to be quite a small operation, but they made Mark 23 TDCs. That's what I know them from. They did Mark 23 TDCs, and it was like, if you want TDC, you buy the Hadron plate. And then now I think they do more things like do like fang plates, and I think they do some Tap 41 parts as well. I think I've got the Medusa wheel, which might be a Hadron Sniper Mechanics collaboration, things like that, where it's like, you look on that website, and then I don't even think Hadron has their own website anymore. They might sell just to Empire. I think might be the case. But it's that kind of thing where it's like they've clearly had a passion for something. They've clearly liked the Mark 23, and they've gone, "Oh, we'll do a TDC for it." And that's become, not to dissuade people from becoming like a one-trick pony. I think for a lot of people that's a really good thing, because it means that they found their sort of niche. And I think if you're starting off, put down the Viper catalog, put down the Nutrol catalog, and just think about something you would want to see yourself, and you make it for yourself, and then you market that and you sell that. Because if it's a niche, if it's a thing you want, and you're looking at it to play, and you're really into the platform you've got, if it's a thing you want, someone else probably wants it too, and airsofters are like completely happy to pay money for that, assuming they're getting a good product and it's reliable, etc. If you say, I really want this one piece that aligns this a bit better, or it's like you want a slightly better hop wheel, things like that. It's like tiny little pieces. You're just like, this would be such a quality of life improvement. I want to make this. Just doing that and then advertising it, even if it's the only thing on your Shopify. Like my Shopify at the start was just that little MWS tool, and then it was a few like mag thumb savers, like when you pull down like gas pistol mags, and you can like fill from the bottom, tons of those, and that was all it was for a little bit. But I was selling like quite a few of those tools, and then as soon as I hit the short stroke, it was like straight through the ceiling, and then I just sort of built on there. So I think big and niche is the most important thing, because it's sort of like when you like look at the big shops, obviously they're doing really well, but they do well because they're shifting a lot. Like volume is the main thing. They're shifting a variety of things, and they're shifting a lot of them. But could you tell me what patrol base's specialism is in?
Bulk BBs.
Bulk BBs.
ASG BBs.
Definitely not upgrades. Fucking sorry.
Holster armories. It's the best.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into a bitch fest.
No.
But it's just an example of like, I would much rather go to a company that did one thing extremely well, and that's what they're known for. And it's sort of like, so for me, like the Levar stuff, I have a lot of people just ask me really generic questions about the Levar, because I have Levar parts. Like, I seem to be sort of one of the Levar guys. So even though they're questions about like what AG in a barrel should I run for this, that's like a question that you can like Google and you can find the answer out. Like, it's pretty samey over the last 10 years. Like, we like our PDI, we like our Prometheus, we like our Lambda, we like Auger, we like all these inner barrels. But it's like, because it's part of like the Levar ecosystem, then I'll get asked it. And I think I would much rather go to someone who knows one thing really well, rather than someone who knows a lot of things not as well. And I think that nicheness is something that I really challenge people. Like, even my brother the other day was like, "Oh, I want to like start a side hustle or whatever." And sorry, there's an annoying twat on the motorbike going past. And he was like, "Yeah, so how would you like do like airsoft stuff?" And I was just like, You're not going to get a foothold into airsoft because you don't play it. Like it's based on like mine and Waldo's like products are based on knowledge of a platform, and it's also the use of it. And we think we would want to see it ourselves. Like Waldo wanted like recoil springs and things like that, and he's done recoil springs because other people would want to buy them. It's more a fact of we're players that have discovered we'd like a better thing. Whilst we're playing, we make that, we sell that. That's how we do things basically.
Fair enough. I mean, going back to thinking about retailing at one point, I looked at stocking rifles and doing all that sort of stuff. I even had a gazebo at one point where I'd go to my local site, set my gazebo up. My thought pattern was I can tech all day and tinker on a bench, just set a bench up. I'll have a few bits and bobs, pyros, rifles, etc., and I can sell that way. It was okay, just okay. You tend to find people turn up to airsoft sites with a bit of cash to pay for the day, fuck all else. And they've got no intention of spending more than the BBs and the rental kit if they need rental kit. And then I started to look into buying more rifles and potentially selling them online and stuff. And I thought, I'll go Yukara. That's an expensive rabbit hole. That is a very expensive rabbit hole. That
You need
holds a lot
brick
of
and
people
mortar
off.
as well. It's their first requirement is a brick and mortar stuff, which is for me is a bit rubbish.
Yeah, it's not viable. I can't find a rentable location with good footfall to make it worthwhile. Even if you had say, in my circumstance, maybe I had just a workshop that was by appointment only, that would count. You'd get in at that. You'd have to do a bit of jiggery pokery, but you'd get away with it. But for me, if memory serves, I might be wrong on the figures, but it was about $250 a year for Yukara, and you had to have company, public liability insurance, a few other things. By the time you'd stacked it all up, you're into thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands. And that's before you bought a shitty Chinese rifle, whatever it might be, Cyma, just pick a brand. And then you've got to sit on that stock for potentially 6 months, and it's not the vibe. It's definitely not the vibe. It's like you say, Specialized is the way. I went down the rabbit hole of teching, and that's my speciality. So like I said, you guys and me, if anyone needs any advice, it's always find your niche. If you're really good at it, you will do well. If you're trying to be generic like everyone else, the big boys are going to come out on top every time because they're established. But yeah, moving on to a more happy topic. Next big project for you guys, so moving on from the Lev AR, have you got anything in mind? Do you want to do anything for the MWS next, or what's your next thing? The new SA58s that are coming out, or
probably from me, I think the issue with buying things like the SA58 is that they're so good out of the box now is that they don't actually need much doing to them. I mean, the hop chamber and the fouls already are really good. The stock BFC blue buckins are really good. So that platform specifically, probably not that much. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to talk about that latest thing with working on Waldo, or?
I was going to mention it, but go for it.
Yeah. So we started developing a GBB bucking. So we're gonna look into doing buckins, because the gas buckins at the moment there's quite a few, but they tend to be they fall into a couple of camps in terms of they're sort of like W holdy or they're sort of like flat patches and stuff. So we're just sort of looking into what we can do around the bucking stuff, and then like looking at costs of manufacturing, things like that. Because obviously a lot of the time we're sort of ordering in, the quantum stuff I'm ordering that in big bulk, because obviously it's part of like our upgrade kits, so we order it in massive bulk. So like looking into, obviously that's an AG bucking, but we're looking gas first because we're gas blowback users mainly. Maybe looking to see what we can do with our own one. I don't think there's any sort of rocket science in terms of doing a bucking. I think there's a lot of variety in contact patches and things like that. But I think on the whole, most of them are sort of quite similar in terms of what they do, as long as they're applying backspin properly, and then you choose like your hardness for how, what kind of heavyweight BBs you want to be using, things like that.
Base material sort of style, so whether it's silicone or something to that accord, that will
so for us sort of it's a finned gas bucking first, and obviously there's basically I see like buckets as being like the finned gas, non-finned gas, where it's like wingless or winged on off, and then like the standard AG one to fit AG in a barrel. So maybe we'll work towards having a few like different selection there, but for now, just looking into seeing what we can do, if it's see if it's something that we'd be happy to put a load of money into. So I've designed one for like CAD modeled up, and we've sent out some stuff just to see what it looks like. But that's a cool thing that that's something that's quite general, that obviously that when you're developing, that is quite a general product compared to what we're used to. But I think it's ideal for us, let's say if we move into doing an AG bucket and it turns out to be good, then for us as like a long-term plan, that works out a lot better, because it means we don't have to order hundreds of buckins wholesale every few months, things like that. So it's sort of like looking to the future in terms of like self-containing your business model, because basically like how our business, I'm sure Waldo will agree, like stocking your own stuff is the best way to do it. Like the stuff you produce yourself is like you're going to get all the full margins on it, exactly how you get the entire creative control over that product. So like for example, like a long-term thing for me would be that everything in my essentials bundle is made by me or made by us. collectively, where it's like we know we can trade stock with each other really easily, things like that. So for us, like even doing the gas bucking is just, even though like the bucking itself is like not ticking in terms of like we don't have any bundles with this in or anything like that. It's a start of a project that we can say, yeah, we can do an AG bucking or we can do a finless bucking, and we can see how well they sell, how well they get on. So yeah, so in terms of future projects, that's one we've done quite recently. And then I think, everything else for me is kind of Levi related. Work. Yeah, I mean, I think for the FAL, I think I might mention I'm doing like an Imperial stock adapter for the, because they're all metric pattern. So things like that, which they're very niche. I probably won't do a big run on that, but yeah. For me, that bucking is the latest thing. The Levi trigger is on the way, and the stock adapters on the way. Just sort of small projects that don't take me too long to sort. And then I'm sure as I keep playing and as I listen to people's feedback, I think Waldo put out like a questionnaire the other day to get some sort of market research, get some opinions on what people like enjoy. Things like that where we look at what we're doing, what we're buying, what we're using, and saying we think we can do a product here. We send out quotes, whatever, and then we get back and we say
I suppose the nice thing about stocking your own sort of bookings and what have you is you're going to be able to, you are your own quality control at that stage. It's direct from manufacturer to you guys. You can check stuff before it goes out. You're not relying on 50 other Ming Mongs checking the product before it arrives to you and it's all knackered or there's something wrong. And it's things like the hop up bookings and whatnot. It always amazes me how it appears anyway that some companies just don't do much beta testing or research into it before they release it. Prime example has got to be the Maple Leaf range that was silicon.
God.
Sort of rubbery, grippy. Good God, I've had so many issues with them where people say, I bought this gun and it keeps jamming and I want to send it off to you to get it repaired. I think it's a gearbox issue. And I'll go, what hot rubber have you got in there? And they go, I went for an upgrade hot rubber and I got this Maple Leaf MR hop, and I went, whoa. Was it clear or was it like a solid colour? And they'll go, it was a clear one. I said, right, take that one out, put it in the bin. And like I said, is when you've got your own products in, the ability to properly test things with quality control is important, and you guys will have full control of that, which is nice. So that's cool. What's the time span on that then, roughly? Have you got one in mind? Have you thought that far?
I mean, I just, obviously speaking sort of quite generically, generally stuff for me takes a couple months to sort. Obviously we're collaborating, so it might be a bit different, but yeah, generally it's sort of, we get a sample back, or obviously because it's a bucking, it has to be like injection molded. So obviously we have to get tooling done, and then we get a sample and we test it all out, like send out to people, get it all tested, and then we say, can we have 1,000 or 500, whatever, and then that takes like a further 20-30 days. So generally sort of, I think probably 2 to 3 months is probably a good estimate for most products that we do. Obviously there's only so much testing you can do sort of yourself, so having a good team of testers, we're quite lucky in the sense that because we make stuff for gas blowback users, we have a massive group of people, of like 20-30 people who all use gas blowbacks, and we can just say, right, go ham, tell me how you're getting on, and tell me what you like about it, what you don't. So having like a good team that you can test stuff with is also really helpful. But yeah, so generally for things like this, I think 2 months is a very early estimate. I think one of the projects we worked with, again, we managed to do in really quickly, but most of the time, yeah, probably 2 to 4 months depending on the house. Because the thing is with injection molding is that if the mold is wrong, you have to get it all done again. It's a massive faff, way more than CNC stuff is, for sure.
Waldo, your reaction there tells me you've had to deal with this often, or at least it was so bad that it's really scarred you.
Yeah, there have been times where a mold was incorrect and it wasn't anybody's fault really, and there were suggestions of, we can fix it, you need to pay this much to fix it. And then it was like, okay, so we either have to pay maybe 2/3 of the cost to fix it, or we just burn what we've already spent and go to someone else and hope they don't make the mistake. And it's like, this wasn't how much it cost, but like as an example, you've spent £600 to fix a situation. It might be 400, and if you go somewhere else, you'll have to spend 600 anyway. And it's like, then we might as well spend the 400. Yeah, and it's one of those like eye-rolling moments where it's like, well, I guess I'm doing this now. I guess that's where it's going, and then you just have to bite the bullet and go for it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Dom, anything else you want to add?
No. I'd like to see more stuff that works. Just works. You get sold a lot of false promises and hopes, and airsoft companies like to go, we're redesigning the wheel for something that's been around forever. Not hop robbers in particular, but just thinking about some hop chambers I've seen recently, and I'm going, right, this product has been around for a long time. It works. Leave it alone. There is no requirement to change it. At what point are you just scamming people? Not scamming. Scam's the wrong word. You are misleading people. Going, you're going to get so much better performance with this or that, and it's just like, if you can't put a hop rubber in a hop chamber properly on a gas blowback, then something's gone horribly wrong, because it goes in one way and it lines up most of the times in one way. You can't go wrong. You don't need to simplify it more than it already is. It's fine. It's nice to see innovation, but I think there's a limit of, right, is this actually necessary, or are you trying to milk something a little bit more?
This happens quite a lot in terms of, maybe sort of in a different context, is that when people try and make end passes for gas blowbacks, they sometimes often get quite a lot of shit, more often in, so I can't remember if you can swear on this or not.
No, it's fine, swear away.
There's some communities around some of the brands like TM or VFC, and then a selection. We talk about like gatekeeping. There's quite a funny thing that happened more recently where a company made like an M pass for the MWS, let's say, and they made it one way, and then someone made another one which is obviously very similar, because there's only so many ways you can put a grub screw through a rocket valve. You can't shape it any differently. It's a grub screw rocket valve. And people were really going in on the second business for making almost the same product, but it was like different color, whatever. You can work out who I'm talking about. But the community, not the first business, would just rip into the second guy. And it was this sort of like cult they had behind this one part. And we see this quite a lot with established brands, where that kind of gatekeepy competition thing, people get really sort of aggy with each other. One thing we had when we had the Levi release in saying no names is there's another brand that makes similar products, and they were just in the Discord channel, in one of the Discord channels for the Levi, and every time like one of them blew up, they would just post it and like laugh at it, and it's like it's a channel for like the platform, and they were just antagonizing the people who were like wanting the Levi to be good. And then it was so easy to just go, I wonder why you have a vested interest in this product not working, considering you make lever-edge parts. It's antagonizing competition like that is so. It's something honestly wild to me, because it literally all it's doing is making the first company look bad if it's a company themselves, but also if they have like a community around it. It can be like tribal at some points. Like there's some communities around certain brands, say no names, TM owner group, where they just absolutely shit on everything else that isn't it, and then they wish everything was done by TM, for example, is a really common thing that I see written. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't want a gas MP5 made by TM, because it might have like weird proprietary internals and things like that. Like, yeah, gas MP5 is cool.
The softest Chinese.
Yeah, it's like. But like it'll be heavy as fuck, because like the MWS mags, so for example, are like twice the weight of the VFC M4 mags. It's things like that where it's like TM. I mean, speaking more generally, like a brand will make a decision, and then another brand will make a different decision. But because it isn't the original brand, they'll just get like shat on for other reasons. And it's that sort of weird tribalism where you put yourself in a camp for sort of no reason, other than to, I don't know, fit in or whatever. But like, it's that kind of like gatekeepy competition thing where a brand will have a go at another brand for just sort of existing or doing something in a similar way. Like, for example, I've had people emailing me being like, so-and-so has stolen like your short stroke design. And I'm like, I wasn't the first person to do a short stroke. It wasn't my idea initially. Someone else did it first. And I said, I talked with them and I said, this is cool. How have you done this? We had like an open discussion in the server, and then I designed it based on that. And then, they had like more recent example was they had a 3D print file of the original short stroke, and other companies have just ripped it and just put their own logo on it and sold it as their own. Like, for example, of some sort of, antagonistic competition is that they've just ripped 3D files, set it as their own, and then just gone, yeah, we're selling this product, it's ours, it's got our logo on it, and then you look at the file and you're like, yeah, you've copied it. Like
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same. You just put your logo on it, and it's things like that, which just, you know, for a community that is so niche on niche like circles, it shouldn't be this, like, there shouldn't be this much infighting. Not really. Like, you would hope that it just wouldn't happen, but it does. And it's like, it's not just between like businesses, like the retailers like hate other retailers, etc. And things like the people hate the people, you know, in these circles. And I think it is just wild how much sort of, maybe if you're not looking for it, you won't see it, but you'll occasionally see like a Reddit post or something, and it'll be like drama between two businesses and things like that. And you're just like, it's like, come on, guys.
Who cares?
As Waldo said earlier,
Yeah.
you could just exist and it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not looking at another short stroke and going, oh, buddy, I'm going to lose loads of money off this. It's like,
Damn it.
no, it's like, it's fine. Like, you made your own. It's cool. Like, I'm glad someone else has made a product that they're happy with.
It's like that stuff has actually, and I've said this to you, Luke, and I won't say what it was, but that's put me off making products. There's like a particular product I want to make that I've put in the business chat, and I'm like, I won't make this because the competition has such a horrid fan base, and I just don't want to deal with them. I can't be. I'm like, they're not going to affect my sales. They won't affect the look of my company. I just don't want to deal with people saying you've copied this when it's like a spring, like it's steel in a coil. Like
this feels like a TM thing. It feels like it's a TM person that's going.
It could be anyone, to be fair. It's just it's sort of like, it's the weird tribalism about like backing one brand for no reason, and then it's sort of like, it's not even people like having a go at people, you know, offering competition. It's when someone will ask for a suggestion on something, and people think there's only one answer to it, and if you deviate from the answer, you are a problem. Not that it's that the other answer is like not acceptable, it's that because you haven't picked the first one, the second one is like null and void. So for example, the stuff I was talking about earlier with the two like companies, the first business ended up having loads of issues with that product, and the second one never did. Yeah, if you suggest it initially, well, it's put a bit more chill now. But when you first suggested the second business, it would be like, nah, they copied the first one, the other. But it's like, but then you could go, yeah, but the first one had loads of issues with it, and they had to rectify it. And it's sort of like, well, the
Was
second
it really
business
that good in the first place?
It's just like, but it's like, you know, they put a grub screw in a valve. It's not rocket science. And then you can point this out in the chat, and then like the business will be like, yeah, like he hasn't copied it. It's the part. You can like. It's basically having a go at people who make like V2 hop chambers, and they're the standard L shape with the food tube at the bottom, and you're going, yeah, you're copying it. It's like, yeah, it has to work like that. It has to have that shape. It has to be, you know, you can add tracer like buttons to it, you can add all the fancy TDCs or whatever, but it has to be that shape because that's what has to fit in.
We had that with the hop arm. Like Luke designed my hop arm, and like that was the first product we ever collaborated on, and people were like, isn't this just a copy of this? And it's like, it's a hop arm. Like it can't be another shape.
Yeah.
Like the thing we can offer, anyone can offer on a hop arm, is price and quality control, and that's it. Like there is a limit. Like you can do different nubs and stuff, but there's also like only 3 variations of that. So like I think some people don't realize in business that sometimes you can only innovate so far. Like, are we now going to get mad at every company that releases new BBs because other people make BBs? Like, it's we can play this game endlessly. We can do this constantly. Like, why are we not boycotting new cars because other cars exist? It's just such a dumb rhetoric. And it's like, it also is, I hate saying it, but like competition breeds innovation, and it also, competition is only benefiting the customer, which is what me and Luke clearly care about so much, which is why we make things affordable to everyone, and we're not charging 5,000% the cost of cost. It's because we know realistically people will pay this and they'll be happy for it, and then we get sales. Like it's win-win for everybody. But yeah, I'm ranting now. But yeah, it just bothers me, and it's the same way it bothers Luke. It's just it has to be the shape. I don't know what else to tell you, dude. Yeah, that's how it has to be.
Yeah, it's not like you've. I know, but yeah, yes. See, with I think there's a bit of a default with the MWS. Like people go this combo, this combo, this combo, or this combo. I've got 5 different ways I can do mine, and do what they all work. They all work. They all do the same thing. The BB hops. It hops nicely. Some do it better than others with different weights. But you know what? It's a game. We're just here to have fun. This is not life or death. If you are happy with how something works, use it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It really. Just leave it alone. Just put the thing in it. It runs. There you go. You're happy.
Me and Luke
Also,
are like on the
just be
same way
happy.
for that. It's just
Yeah.
like we're so like it's almost we're almost like to a level. Me and Luke are almost anti-upgrade. We're almost like, which is hilarious to say out loud, but we're almost like we won't really make something unless we really see a point in it. And I think the point either needs to be this will make a significant difference, like the short stroke or the nozzle. Like this is something that doesn't exist. It will benefit people, and they become default parts. And I think the only things outside of that me and Luke do is we'll like, unless the thing, if the competition is way too expensive, like this is ridiculous. Like you're charging £30 for something that we know costs 50p to make. Like £10 sure, because you have to spend £10,000 in bulk or whatever to make it, but you don't need that much. Or it's just impossible to source. Like this company who makes this great product will make 100 a year, and then once that 100 sells, there's no more for the rest of the year. I think those are really the only 3 things me and Luke hit, is necessity, demand, and like price. And outside that, I think the only products I really have that were low-hanging fruit was sort of at the beginning, because I needed like a bed of reliable sellers. But even then, like by low-hanging fruit, I mean like the high kappa springs exist, and but you know, I thought, well, I'll make them colored so that way people know the strength that they have in their gun. Like the spring's red, I know it belongs to Waldo, and red means the heaviest. Done. Okay, so at least there's a level of innovation. And then from there, me and Luke, and I know Luke's done similar things, it helps fund doing the actual important stuff. And I think there's not enough of that, really, and I think that's pretty much our ethos.
Final question. What is I'll start with Waldo. What's your end goal for your business? So do you want to, well, what's your long-term plan? So are you going to just have a range of products, and then that's going to be something that you can sort of start to retire on, or do you want to branch out into another industry eventually, or what's your end goal?
I've been going through a lot of rhythms with this lately. It's something that's in my brain. So I've been doing a lot of forward planning, lots of like, okay, if I really want to do well, what steps realistically do I need to take? Like what steps do other people make? And it's everything from employees, a premises, all the boring stuff. And I'm like, okay, I need to do it in this order. And I am going to do it. And I do, like, I want this to be my life now. Like this is my career, and I'm happy with that. I enjoy it. It's something I like to think I'm good at, and people seem to like it too. I'd say more people like it than don't, and that's enough for me. But what I've come to realize lately, and I really mean this only in the last few weeks, as long as I'm having fun and I'm not like hitting bottom poverty, then I'll be forever grateful. Like as long as like if I had this thought only like 2 days ago, if my life stayed this way forever, where I had a bedroom sized room filled with products and I was making one every 3 months and people were liking it, and my salary and is only a little over minimum wage, then I think I'd be okay with that. Like it's something I enjoy. I'm also in a very lucky position where although I am full-time, I don't actually have to work full-time. I'm very lucky. You know, if I want to work 4 hours a day, if I want to take a 3-day weekend, I can. And that is an incredibly lucky thing to have. And so whilst I am going to try and get bigger, and I think things like the GBB hop-up bucking are actually significant steps towards that, ultimately, if things stay the way they are, I will die a happy guy. Like, that is just what I want, really. I'm happy with this.
Luke, what is
Yeah.
your end goal or even future plan? You don't necessarily have to have an end goal, but
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of. So it's not like a full-time thing for me at the moment, but I wouldn't mind if it was. You know, it's sort of like having had a taste of it over the last few months, sort of like been out of full-time work for 2 months straight and just sort of doing this full-time. You know, it's being your own boss. It's very relaxed. I think a lot of people probably, dream of that kind of thing, like being your career. And I think it's really sort of admirable to try and go for. Is that like being completely self-sufficient. And it's sort of like if I wanted to make it full-time, I probably could now. But for me, it's sort of like I have like more ambitions in terms of like needing more money for stuff like. It's more to do with like life generally rather than like the business itself. Because basically, as it is now, sort of like doing a similar thing to Waldo is I release a new product every few months. Cycle continues, get more old stock in, keep going. Like the actual cycle of it stays the same, but it being like more of a career is definitely more to do with like life circumstances rather than the business itself. Like I'd like to own property or whatever. I need to save up money to do stuff like that. It's like it's more life related for me, the end goal rather than. But as the business is going at the moment, I'm just going to keep buying replicas, making parts of them, and then the cycle continues. Sort of like my upgrades fall in line with me buying like new products and stuff like new replicas. Me going, this is cool, I'll do that. As I buy more stuff, more products will come to me. So for me, it's probably a very similar cycle, but I think life sort of targets probably quite different because it's sort of like, I would like to save up more money, so I'll be working full time as well. But as like a business, it's probably very similar goals to what I would say. Keep people happy, good products, etc. Keep going.
Fair enough. Well, I think that pretty much is a wrap, gentlemen. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Go check out Waldo's channel and all that sort of stuff. Go find his Discord. Go buy stuff. It's all good stuff. Go check out Luke at Bristol Base and all of his things. There's loads of cool things these guys do between them. And what's the best way to get a hold of you both?
I do email, I do Instagram. If you want to talk to me like we're talking now, I'm pretty much on Discord all day because it's genuinely like a work app for me at this point. It's basically Slack that a lot of people use, and it is very handy. And I'm very active in my own server, and there's lots of other people in there who are very nice. And you can read stuff like I have a channel that shows every product we're making and where it is in production. So if you see something you like, you can track it as it's going. And there's a suggestions bit too. But yeah, that's like the best way to get to me, I think.
Yeah, so very similar. Also, I use Discord a lot. I mean, obviously, because I've started a new job, I'm sort of can be quite focused on that during the day. But in the evenings, I'm pretty much on Discord all the time. I've got a server as well, but it's a bit more low key. You can find it on my website. I just sort of post updates in there. I talk a lot in like the HRC Heavy Recoil Club, that Discord. I talk a lot in the Lever Action channel there. Super active in that. And then like Luke.BBA, Instagram, Bristol Based Airsoft, and everything else. YouTube, Facebook. I do some Lever videos occasionally. Usual stuff. But yeah.
Right, well, that being that, thank you everyone for coming on. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank
and
you.
look forward to seeing you guys at our event coming up. And
yes.
Yeah, hope everyone keeps well. Catch you soon. Cheers, chaps.
In a bit.